Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Tillman with another Tillman's Take. Now, this video comes to us out of Nashville, Tennessee, and it involves an officer that conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle where the registered owner had multiple arrest warrants for his or her arrest. Let's take a look and see what happens next.
You scaring me.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on. Here, do me a favor, turn.
No, hold
Turn
on.
around.
Don't put me in handcuffs. I haven't done anything wrong.
Ma'am.
No, don't put me
You're about to get tased.
No!
Get down! Get down on the ground! Down on the ground!
No! 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 I didn't do that! I didn't do Ah! 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 Help! Help me! Help! 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 I
Step
didn't
out.
do nothing.
Step out. Ma'am! Put the gun down!
I didn't do that.
Put the gun down! 23 shots fired! Shots fired!
10-4, 13, keep at that code 3.
I'm hit.
All right, now that we've watched the stop, this officer is now trying to figure out what's going on and if this female is associated to the registered owner. We do know that the registered owner was not the female, but we also know that the registered owner had arrest warrants for his arrests what were involving narcotics. And so that right there gives that officer the means to start investigating a little bit further to see whether or not there's narcotics in this car, because we know that the registered owner has been associated with narcotics in the past. So he starts to talk to this female, and as he talks to the female, he asks her, hey, do you have anything illegal in the car? And she says, yes, I have weed. At that moment in time, he allows her to go back into the vehicle to retrieve that weed. Now let's stop right there. As police officers, we got to be careful of allowing people to go back into vehicles, especially if we haven't searched them. And the reason that's important is because if they have guns or whatever in that car and we haven't searched that vehicle out, they can pose a threat to us and everybody else around us. Now, moving forward, she grabs her purse out of that car. And once she grabs her purse out of that car, that officer starts to search the purse. Now, as he's searching that purse, she's just kind of standing there smoking a cigarette, walking around. One of the things that I've realized in my law enforcement experience is that when somebody thinks they're going to go to jail or they're going to be detained, they start to get nervous and they want to smoke a cigarette because it's going to calm them down and help them think about what their next move is going to be. Now, he doesn't have a backing officer there yet, and so she's just kind of roaming around as she pleases. This is also dangerous for us as police officers just because we can't control her as we're trying to search her bag or her car. Therefore, this is why police officers many times will tell somebody to sit on the curb and cross their feet so that way we can obtain a position of advantage to prevent them from doing something to us or anybody else. Well, this doesn't occur, and so something that officer finds in her bag, or he decides at some point in time during the investigation that he's going to take her into custody and therefore put her in handcuffs. Well, when that happens, he asks her to put her hands behind her back and she retreats back to that car. Now the race is on for this officer to get to her before she gets back to that vehicle. He attempts to tase her, but the taser is ineffective initially. He tries to use it, and for whatever reason, I don't know if the prongs didn't connect or whatever it may be, but it was an ineffective taser strike. So therefore, what he does is he goes into drive stun mode, and what that is when the officer actually puts the taser up into a person's skin, and what you're going to get from that is pain compliance. Now, this initially works. You'll see she freezes up in the driver's seat, and as she freezes up in the driver's seat, that would tell us that he's getting some type of pain compliance. However, it's not effective completely because her whole body is not incapacitated, which is what we want. And as she's able to move around in that car, this is where the stop really goes bad. She's able to reach for a gun inside that vehicle and turn it at that officer. So he now pulls his firearm out in order to stop that threat that she's presented towards him. Now, he has his taser and his firearm in both hands. That's something we also want to try to avoid as police officers, simply because you want to make sure you have a good platform. When in doubt, you got to fire your firearm. Now, when she grabs her firearm, she's actually successfully able to deliver some rounds on target to him. As soon as he gets struck, he's also able to return fire at her. However, even though she's struck, she's able to drive away and leave the scene. Now he falls to the ground and he calls for backup, and you can clearly see that, he's hurting because he's been struck by the gunfire. Now she crashes a little bit ways down the road and she's later pronounced dead on the scene. Now, what are some learning points that we can take from this? The first and foremost thing that we have to identify is lifetime fitness as police officers. I'm so glad that this officer survived. I'm so glad that he was actually able to return fire and stop that threat from her hurting anybody else or any other police officer. But at the same time, I do believe that if lifetime fitness was in effect here, i.e. he was in a little bit better shape, he may have been able to prevent her from getting back to that car and grabbing that gun. So although it may have been possible for him to prevent her from getting to the vehicle, that's not what happened here. And he was dealt with what he had and he responded and he survived. And at the end of the day, that's a success for him. It's a win for him. But as officers and members of the community, how can we learn from this? Well, as officers, we got to realize that we have to operate safe. We got to make sure that we try to control people as much as possible, prevent them from going back into vehicles, control them by sitting them down, not allowing them to roam around us. And then as civilians, we also have to comply with the instructions of what officers are giving us. She obviously had it clearly made up in her mind that she was going to try to shoot this officer or try to escape because for whatever reason, she wasn't going to go to jail for this. And so that's something that officer couldn't control. It's easy for us as police officers to, lose track of our personal health and well-being. It goes beyond us just being healthy. It goes beyond us just, trying to stay in shape to do a fitness competition. It goes down to us trying to survive for our family and our friends. And that's why lifetime fitness is so important for us as police officers, because we want to make sure that it helps us do our job better and effectively. But at the same time, given a stressful job like we have, it will help us last in the long term. I'm so happy that this officer made it back home safely to his family. That officer, again, this is not Monday morning quarterbacking. This is all of us just trying to learn so that way we can prevent situations like this from happening in the future. I hope you guys learned something from this. Thanks again and God bless.